A single, mysterious envelope. That's how it all started. It just appeared at my apartment. No stamp, no return address. I'm Theo, a struggling actor. You know, the kind who lives on instant noodles and dreams. Inside this envelope was a crimson mask, the kind you see at a fancy Venetian ball, and a small, elegant note. The handwriting was sharp, almost like a claw had written it. You've been chosen for the Jester's Masquerade. Midnight. Don't be late. Honestly, I thought it was a prank. Probably my friend Mark, trying to get me out of my post-rejection slump. But the mask, it felt old, heavy. Curiosity, that devil on my shoulder, started whispering. What if it wasn't a prank? What if this was some exclusive, underground acting gig? The kind that could change everything. Against my better judgment, I decided to go. The address led me to the old Orpheum Grand, a theater that had been boarded up since I was a kid. But tonight, there were lights inside, flickering like dying embers. The massive front doors, usually chained shut, were slightly ajar. I slipped inside, and the air immediately turned cold, thick with the smell of dust and something else. Something sweet, like old perfume. The main hall was filled with people, all wearing masks, all dancing. But there was no music, not a single note. Just the soft, unsettling shuffle of dozens of feet on the worn-out carpet. They moved in perfect, eerie synchronization, a silent, ghostly waltz. No one spoke. No one even looked at each other. It was the most unnerving thing I had ever seen. I felt like I'd walked into a dream, or more accurately, a nightmare. Then he appeared. Standing on the grand stage, bathed in a single, pale spotlight, was the Jester. His costume seemed to be stitched together from literal shadows, and his mask. It was stark white porcelain with a smile that was too wide, too permanent. It was a mask of pure, unadulterated madness. He scanned the silent, dancing crowd, his head tilting slowly until his gaze landed on me. He pointed a long, white-gloved finger directly at me, and then he began to clap. A slow, deliberate, deafening clap that echoed through the silent theater. Instantly, every single dancer froze in place, their heads turning in unison to stare at me. 100 masked faces, all focused on me. My heart hammered against my ribs. "You're the lead tonight," the Jester's voice boomed, smooth as silk but cold as a grave. "Act well." He paused, letting the words hang in the air, or bleed. Before I could process what was happening, two large figures grabbed me by the arms and dragged me onto the stage. The velvet curtains slammed shut behind me, plunging the world into darkness, leaving me alone with the grinning Jester. I was thrust into a performance with no rehearsal, no director, no script I recognized. The scenes changed at a moment's notice. 1 minute I was a king on a throne, the next a beggar in the street. The other actors, their faces hidden behind identical blank masks, whispered lines that made no sense, fragments of forgotten plays, nonsensical riddles. Their words felt like poison darts aimed at my sanity. The props were a cruel joke. A prop dagger felt impossibly sharp against my skin. A goblet of prop wine smelled suspiciously metallic. The play was a chaotic spiral into madness, and I was at its center. And then, the audience members began to disappear. One by one, the masked guests from the dance floor were yanked from their seats. Trapdoors sprang open beneath them, curtains swirled around them like hungry serpents, pulling them into the shadows. Not a single person screamed. They just vanished. Panic clawed at my throat. I had to get out. During a scene change, I broke character and ran. I sprinted off the stage, searching for an exit, for any sign of the real world. But the theater itself seemed to be against me. It was alive. Hallways that should have led outside twisted back on themselves, looping endlessly. Doors I opened led not to freedom, but right back onto the stage, where the Jester would be waiting, his smile wider than before. His mocking voice echoed from every corner, a chilling refrain that promised no escape. Encore! Encore, I was trapped, running in circles in this labyrinth of fear. I stumbled into a dusty dressing room, the door slamming shut behind me. My hands shook as I fumbled for a light switch. The room was a mess of moth-eaten costumes and cracked mirrors, but what caught my eye was the wall. It was covered, floor to ceiling, in old newspaper clippings. My blood ran cold as I read the headlines. Promising young actor vanishes. Starlet last seen near Orpheum Grand. Decades-long string of missing performers baffles police. Each article told the same story, spanning almost a century. And in the corner of one faded photograph, a group photo of a 1920s theater troupe, I saw him. The Jester, his porcelain mask and shadowy costume were identical, unchanged by the passage of time. It hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a play, it was a ritual. The Jester wasn't a man in a costume. He was a creature, an entity that fed on performance, that grew stronger with every drop of genuine emotion, every ounce of fear. The better you acted, the more you entertained him, the longer you were allowed to live. Your life was the price of admission. A strange calm washed over me. The fear was still there, a knot in my stomach, but now it had a purpose. I was an actor. This was the role of a lifetime. I walked out of the dressing room and back onto the stage. The Jester was there, waiting. I didn't run. I took a deep breath and I began to perform. I gave him everything. I improvised scenes of heartbreaking tragedy and gut-busting comedy. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. I cried with such desolation that my body shook. I screamed with a raw, primal terror that came from the deepest part of my soul. I used every trick, every lesson, every ounce of talent I had. I wasn't just acting anymore, I was living these emotions for him. And the Jester, he was delighted. He clapped, he stomped his feet, he even let out a high, cackling laugh that was more terrifying than his silence. For hours, I performed for an audience of one. Finally, as the first hint of dawn seeped through a high, grimy window, he raised a hand. "Bravo," he said, his voice laced with genuine admiration. A truly magnificent performance. He gestured towards the main entrance. "You may leave." I didn't wait for a second invitation. I ran. I burst through the heavy front doors and into the cool morning air. The sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I had never been so happy to see it. I made it. I survived. I leaned against a wall, gasping for breath, and happened to catch my reflection in a shop window. And I screamed because the face staring back at me wasn't my own. The skin was pale, the eyes were dark, and a wide, permanent smile was stretched across the lips. It was the Jester's face, my face. I was him now. Back in the decaying splendor of the Orpheum Grand Theater, a gloved hand placed a fresh crimson mask into a new envelope. A single note was slipped inside. Somewhere in the city, another struggling artist was about to receive an invitation. The next actor had been chosen, and the show must go on. Thank you so much for watching this tale of terror. If you enjoyed being part of the Masquerade, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the shadows. Stay safe out there and be careful what invitations you accept.